So we are working denials today. First denial we got is for behavior health. The nutritional therapist or the registered dietitian claim went out without a supervising provider on listed in box 17 of the claim form. So it came back rejected. And so now I have to go into the system and just correct that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the claim that went out and just go ahead and add the supervising provider. Okay, so that one is done. Okay, for this next one, an outpatient and an inpatient service was performed on the same day. So I just want to know how could that be. So let's go and check to see if the patient was inpatient or outpatient, and then correct the claim. Okay, so the patient was inpatient, and the place of service we have is inpatient. So I'm not understanding this denial, so I am going to send it back and just ask them to review it again, unless I already corrected this. Let me see something. Okay, so we have another claim with the same issue. The RD was billed out, and it looks like a supervising physician was not on the claim. So let me just go ahead and double check that the supervising wasn't on the claim, and if not, then I'll go ahead and get that corrected and sent out. It looks like the supervising is on the claim. It could have been that it's on there afterwards, but maybe it's the referring that is wrong. So let's see who referred the patient for this visit. To find the referring, sometimes you can see on the note, but definitely on the order. The order will tell you who the referring is. All right, so we had to correct the referring MD and resubmit that. Okay, so this next denial says there was 2 separate claims for the same type of provider, the same day of service. One was for psychotherapy, one was for E&M, so they denied it as a duplicate. So I know that psychotherapy and E&M visits, even if it's med management, cannot be billed on the same day of service. So we're just gonna have to go ahead and accept that denial. Okay, so this next denial was for a telehealth modifier. Looks like it went out with a GT modifier, and this particular payer wants a 95 modifier. So let's just go ahead and correct that. Okay, so this next denial is the same thing. This particular payer doesn't like the GT modifier, and it went out with a GT modifier, so we need to add the 95 on here. And it's because this particular, I don't know how it does this, because from my understanding, I'm not a biller, I'm a coder first and foremost, but from my understanding, however, the first payer likes the claim, the second, you're supposed to submit it the same exact way to the second payer. Where this first payer was like the GT modifier, but the second payer doesn't like the GT modifier. So it went out and got paid whatever it was going to pay from the first payer. And now the second payer is being submitted to the second payer, and they don't like the GT modifier. So we have to adjust it, I guess, for the second payer, which again, I didn't know that. I thought it had to be the exact same for both payers, but this is what billing is telling me. So I'm going to go ahead and change it. And then the last denial that I have for psychotherapy is the same exact thing. It went out to the first payer. The first payer liked the GT modifier, but the second payer doesn't. So we're going to go ahead and just change it to the 95 modifier. All right, so we are done with the denials for behavior health. So I am going to go and work my urology denials. So urology is a little bit more um tedious because it's some things that aren't covered that our providers do that they want covered, and we send a lot of appeals out to try to get them to see if they can consider it. And when you send an appeal, you have to send medical records, so I have to go ahead and review those. So this first denial was they sent out a reconsideration with the notes, and they still denied it. And this was for CPT code 51040. So let's look and see what that is. So it's for cystostomy with drainage. So let's go ahead and pull up this particular claim, and let's see what else we build out with this. And let's just see if maybe it could have been a part of another procedure that was done. Okay, so they're saying that the CPT code 51040 is for a cystostomy with drainage, and that it is not compatible with another procedure or another procedure modifier performed on that service on the same day of service. And they want to know if since they already submitted a reconsideration and the denial was upheld, they wanted to confirm that there was no other modifiers that's needed. So there is no other modifiers, and I'm just going to answer the question. No other modifiers can be added. Okay, so this next one is this procedure, it doesn't like the diagnosis code, so it must be a LCD or NCD for this procedure, which I'm sure it is because it is a study, a urodynamic study that was done on the patient. And I know there are LCDs, NCDs for this. So let's see what is here. So previously built with this K code and denied, corrected to this code and still denying. All right, so I'm gonna pull up the NCD for this particular code or this particular procedure. All right, so for that one, we went ahead and found a better diagnosis per the medical record and went ahead and corrected that and sent it back out. So for this one, this next denial, our providers usually do a procedure that most insurances consider inclusive. And even though we know it'll probably get denied, they still do it. So I still bill it out. So this particular one, I'm just going to tell them to accept the denial. It is CPT code 54512. Excision of a lesion of the testes. And so they usually do that because they want to prevent, it's a preventative measure. So I already know I'm just keeping track of them so that I can bring it back to our providers and let them know that this procedure is being denied over and over again. So they may want to either see about getting it in the contracts that, they need to consider this, or maybe stop doing this procedure, reevaluate if it's necessary. I don't know, but I'm just going to bring them the information back, and then they can do what they will with the information. So this next denial is for an excludes one rule. So let's take a look at it. It says I build out Q5562, and it's an excludes one with Q54.8, and that is true. So I am going to delete one of them and just say I corrected the diagnosis. Sometimes I go so fast that I just don't be check it. I usually check the DX because I want to make sure that I'm not doing an excludes, because those are unnecessary denials. But sometimes if it's like towards the end of the month and I just need to get the charges out, I'll look at them and see if they're not familiar. If they're familiar with to me, then I'll go ahead and correct it. But if it doesn't stick out to me, I won't check and won't correct it. But I shouldn't. I should check always. So this next denial says that the biller sent the medical records in the op notes previously. They were denied needing medical records. So can you highlight to show me what goes to each CPT codes? I just need the notes. All right, so pull up this encounter and see if I can just grab the notes and highlight what's going on with it. So like I said, these are the types that are tedious. Okay, now that we finally have the um, chart up, go back and write down each CPT number. Right, this is the hypostadia. This is the flap. This is the tissue transfer. And this is the scrotum revision. Okay. So what was done was a hypostadia stage 1 repair, a pedicle flap, a tissue transfer, and a scrotum revision. So they need to know what CPT codes go with what. So I have to highlight for the biller the different CPT codes. I need to have access to a PDF editor so that I can go ahead and give the biller the information that they need so they can go ahead and submit the medical records to the payer. I don't have access to it right now, so I sent a request to our IT department to give me access to it, and then once I get access to it, then I'll go ahead and get it everything all highlighted and notated and send it over to the biller, and then we'll get that going. But this next one is a NCD issue again. So I'm going to have to talk to our providers about these studies because the payer isn't liking the diagnosis, the reason why they are wanting to do these studies. So I need to talk to them to get a list to see if we can make sure that we're all on the same page. Okay, so there is another listed condition on the medical record that will be covered for these studies. And I'm going to go ahead and make that the first diagnosis. And as long as the provider documented that there are other diagnoses on here that is covered for this particular procedure, we can go ahead and add it to the claim so that it'll be covered and it is relevant. So we got that corrected. This next one says that it was a procedure done within the global period, and they just wanted to make sure that this was not that this visit was part of the global. So let's see. Okay, so what it looks like is this patient may have more than one account. This patient came in the day before and had a visit, and then the provider decided to do a surgery the next day, and their visit got lumped into the surgery. So, because there wasn't a modifier on the visit that was done the day before, I need to go ahead and add a modifier to it to let them know that there was a decision for surgery that happened during that visit. I believe the modifier is 57. Yes. So I need to add a modifier 57 to the visit the day before so that we can go ahead and get that covered. And I'll just add the modifier and just let the biller know that I corrected it and added the modifier. Okay, so this next one is I've tried everything to get this paid, so I'm wondering if this can be billed with just this diagnosis, since that is the only diagnosis they have approved to support the medical necessity that is listed on the claim. The remaining DXs on the claim does not support the medical necessity. So let's take a look at the CPT code and the medical records to see if we can use that DX if it's listed. Okay, so let me just pull up the medical record, the med notes, and it's really for these urodynamic um studies, like those things. It's just crazy. Okay, so none of the diagnoses that is listed in this medical record is covered for these studies. So what I'm going to do is submit this to the provider and ask the provider if they can review this one last time just to make sure that we're not missing anything. And if they come back and say that all the diagnosis is correct, that there wasn't anything else that we could do, then we just have to accept the denial. Yep, we'll just have to accept the denial if there's no other diagnosis, because I don't see anything in the medical record that I can pull to say that this was supported. And I cannot lead the provider and let them know what diagnosis is covered. I just have to ask them to please review this medical record and see. Wait a minute. Wait. They do have something that they mentioned in the H&P. Let's see if that one is covered. Yes. Never mind. I found one. I found a diagnosis I can use. Okay, so for this one, in the medical record, there was a payable diagnosis that was listed, but the diagnosis did not drop. How Epic is, it didn't drop in the visit diagnosis. It was mentioned in the HPI. It was mentioned that this was the reason for the visit, but it didn't fall on the order of the particular study. So I had to go and look for the visit note because the procedure note is separate from the visit note. But they did use this visit in order to order the test for the patient. So what we will have to do is to submit the visit notes with the procedure notes in order for it to get paid and to support that the the provider chose to do this particular test because the visit notes suggests or outlines the reason for the visit, but it just didn't fall on the order notes, if that makes it. It didn't fall on the order. So I don't know, but it'll tie in together. The reason for the visit is actually a billable covered diagnosis. All right, we are almost done. I think I got 2 more left. So this next one is saying this CPT code 51702 is not compatible with the diagnosis. So basically, it's not medically necessary. So let's see. So 51702 is for an insertion of a catheter, a simple insertion. And I'm sure it's because the sequencing of the diagnosis. So I'm just going to resequence the diagnoses. And then last one is, I am unable to find the medical records. Would you please show me where they are? If changes are made, please do a corrected claim. So they say that they need medical records. I can't submit medical records right now. But I just want to check the date of service to make sure the date of service is right for this. They have the date of service is 124. So the date of service was wrong on the claim. So I just needed to correct the date of service for that one and submitted a corrected claim. And that is it. I am done with denials. So I hope this helped you understand or get a look into how we, correct denials and the types of issues that can come up from a coder. These are just my particular denials. Not every coder has the same type of denials. Each department is unique. A lot of my behavioral health denials, I will say, is just a matter of my modifiers and my POSs, and sometimes, like different types of therapists will see the patient the same day and only one will get covered. And we know that in our facility, in our organization. So and then my urology denials, those are a little bit more in depth. Sometimes I have to send medical records to, prove that the provider did the procedures that is being billed. Sometimes we have to accept some denials, as even though it doesn't show an NCCI edit. Sometimes some payers just call it inclusive, and we have to try to appeal. And if the appeal doesn't work, then we have to go ahead and accept the denial, but then provide education to our providers about what's going on so that they can work with compliance and we can work with compliance to see how we can rectify these things in the future. Sometimes it's just sequencing diagnoses, just little silly mistakes that I overlook. You saw I had an excludes one denial, a data service denial. So those are very preventable denials that I just need to pay more attention to. But the number of claims that I put out in any given month, I would just say that was pretty minimal for the number of claims that I put out. So I hope this video was insightful and helpful for you. If you have any questions or anything you want to talk about, leave it in the comments below, and I would definitely look at them and see what I can help you with. So until the next video, I will see you soon.